Hey guys, Chris Hoare, Systems Engineer with Fortinet, getting ready to do a Fortinet Fabric demo. Fortinet's Fabric can consume information from many different Fabric partners or using any of our Fabric connectors pre-built into a FortiOS. Here's a few that have been set up for this demo lab. Going on over to our physical topology, we can take a look at how this lab is connected. Lab 01 is the FortiGate that we're logged into now. There's some switches, there's some other FortiGates, many of them using SD-WAN. We've got some endpoints, even some Wi-Fi here in the demo lab that we'll be showing today. So the purpose of today is to use all Fortinet devices to show how we can share threat information across threat vectors. Of course, Fortinet devices can quarantine and stop what we refer to as patient zero. That's the first person or device to download malicious content. However, for the purpose of today's demo and to allow our fireworks to happen, we're not quarantining the first device. So you will see this file make it down into my endpoint. The different threat vectors that we'll show today include email protections, firewall protections, the Forti client running on the endpoints, and our sandbox to tie everything together and share threat information. So let's get started. We've got a malicious URL that made its way into our environment. Maybe this is a USB stick that somebody's picked up off the ground. Could be a web page that somebody had embedded inside of a document. Maybe somebody brought something from home on purpose. Either way, this malicious URL made it into our environment. We have a user in our environment sitting behind the FortiGate that's going to go ahead and access the URL. As a reminder, we did say that this first file can be quarantined while inspections are being done on it, but for the demo, we've allowed this through. So that file that came through the FortiGate was sent over and is being processed on our FortiSandbox. Looking at the status of the file, this is the FSA downloader that was just downloaded. We can take a screenshot. We can actually look at, interact with the virtual machine that's doing the inspection on the file. While the sandbox is running, we'll go ahead and jump on over and look at this topology again. So Lab 01 is the FortiGate that's the root of Fabric. It's the top of the chain, if you will, for our security fabric in this lab. This OS device down here is the one that just downloaded the malicious content. So highlighting any of these devices, we can go ahead and find out some more information about it, where it's located, IP address. A lot of information that's always helpful when you're trying to track down a problem across your network. Before this file is finished being inspected, I want to jump on over and show you how we configure the fabric. A lot of people get scared when they start looking at integrating devices because they've been down this road before. We talked about the sandbox doing inspection on our files. It's as easy as entering an IP address for the device and clicking test connectivity. Of course, you have to authorize the device on the sandbox, but once you do, they set up an encrypted channel to be able to submit files, quarantine files, and query results from the sandbox. So let's look back at our sandbox. The file is finished being inspected. If we go back to the dashboard, that file that was previously being scanned is now finished. And we've got two high-risk, suspicious files that have entered our environment. Looking at the FSA downloader, the one that we just did for today's time and date, let's take a look at the actions that the actual file took. So it took about 24 seconds going through a full VM scan. This VM did use artificial intelligence, which is enabled on this sandbox. So this is not caught by any known signatures. This is a zero-day attempt to attack this environment. Some of the indicators of why the sandbox feels this file is malicious and a high-risk file are included here, but we can get a lot more detail on this file. We just clicked to download the report. Now I've got a PDF of every interaction this file took in and out and around that environment. Here's some of the basics. Scrolling on down, of course, red is highlighted for us, the high-risk behavior. This thing created a couple files without a actual window opening and then reached back out to two different web servers. It dropped two files in random locations, very indicative of malicious malware type activities. Scrolling down, there's a ton more information in this report, but we'll get out of here. We'll close this back out. Let's go back over to our sandbox here. We're going to refresh our settings and scroll on down. This signatures, dynamic malware detection, and URL threat detection version has incremented to 1. We'll go ahead and spoil this a little bit. Let's look at the entries that are on here. So this URL that's now known as malicious by our FortiGate in our Fortinet Fabric is automatically added an entry for a malicious URL ending in bad things demo. If we come back over here and look at what our user clicked on, bad things demo is the same URL that was followed initially. So let's try and follow this URL again, and we'll see that our environment's now dynamically blocked this URL for us. Let's go ahead, as I promised earlier, and start showing some of those other threat vectors in action. This is a Fortinet server. Currently, it's deployed in a gateway mode, so this is doing all of the email hosting, delivery, etc. for this entire environment. However, we can be configured to just scrub and clean and send your email on its way to your existing email service. Doesn't matter if it's an on-prem exchange, maybe you're using a SaaS offering, O365, anything of those flavors. We can sit in front of those email services, scrub, clean, and then deliver your mail just as your users are used to. So to show the power of this threat sharing across the threat vectors, we're going to go and send an email on to every single bad guy in our organization, just like every other good piece of malware that's trying to come in. We're going to have some misspelled words. We're going to make sure that everyone knows they need to go ahead and click on this URL. And let's go ahead and add an attachment. This FSA downloader that we just attached, let's put that on our files, because it's a lot easier for the sales guys to go ahead and click if the malicious file is attached. So we've attached FSA downloader. I put the URL in there. This is a new sales lead. Hurry. All right, that's got to get everybody's attention. Let's send this thing off. The email is getting scrubbed, it's getting cleaned, it's getting sent on over. Our user does not yet have this because Fortinet is querying the rest of the pieces of this Fortinet security fabric to see if the content, the URL, and the executable that was attached are malicious. If they're known to be malicious, this server is set up to append a big warning for our users. You notice when I created the subject of the email, I did not add malware removed. That was added by the email protections. Again, of course, the exe, we checked with all the other pieces that we were talking to in the security fabric. They told us that that file is bad. So my email servers removed that exe and I can no longer click on it. This particular server is configured to allow the URL through. So let's see what that does. Everybody knows all you have to do is right click and go to the URL. That's still protected for us. So we've protected our users via two different threat vectors already. Our FortiGate, which is on-prem, which is the root of this security fabric, as well as our email protections. We've shown how FortiSandbox is able to detect within just a matter of seconds the malicious behavior and then provide us some reporting. But there's another threat vector that's very common in most enterprises. This is a web portal. Maybe this is a web service where your vendors can upload files containing information for POs that need to be paid. Maybe these are customers that are sharing files back and forth. Whatever it is, we have one to simulate in our environment. As you noticed, I switched from Web 02 to Web 01 by just restarting my web session. So this is FortiWeb. It is actually sitting and doing load balancing in front of two separate and distinct web servers, Web 01, Web 02. For this session, we were passed over to Web 01. I'm going to be allowed to go ahead and try and upload a file into the repository for this web server. The file has been blocked. Let's go try that again. This time we'll try a benign file, which should be allowed through in our environment. Let's see if we've got one in here that we can use. A PDF file, that's a good one to go with. This file is being sent over for inspection because it's not known it's going to be sent through our VM for inspection, just as the previous file was. If we come on over to our sandbox, if we hit refresh, and we look at our files that are processing, it's checking that PDF for us now. As soon as that PDF is finished being checked, the web upload to our web server will be allowed to successfully continue. In the meantime, while we're looking at that, we do have some other FortiGates that are connected to this fabric. Let's go ahead and log into any of these. I'll pick the top one, Concord Yard for us. We're going to log in via single sign-on. This is again part of the Fortinet security fabric, allowing our administrators to share their login credentials across the fabric. I click to log in. I'm going to be prompted for my two-factor token. This works with Radius, it works with LDAP, works with many other identity sources directly out of the box for Fortinet. The two-factor token is managed in the cloud by Fortinet's Cloud Token Service. This warning here is because my FortiGates are connected to a FortiManager. Manager is a single pane of glass for your entire environment, where there would be 1 or 10,000 FortiGates. This single pane of glass can pull in, configure, and then report on all of the events across your environment. I'm going to go ahead and choose to log in as read write. It's again reminding us of some sessions and sections of our FortiGates that we should not make changes to directly. Those should be going on to the FortiManager. But for the demo today, we're going to look at our security fabric. We'll look at our settings. These settings are actually passed on through from the root FortiGate. That's that Labo 1 device that we set up earlier. So I don't have to configure every FortiGate in my environment. It's actually shared dynamically for me. We can see that the sandbox, for example, the IP is already entered. And now we can see that there's 2 entries in our URLs that are malicious on this device. If we click to take a look, the bad things demo, this is the same URL that we were using for our demo earlier. Click over to show you here. Bad things demo. Let's go back to the Conquered Yard. So both of these files, the URL and all the threat information is now known across my entire fabric. It doesn't matter if my endpoints are in a data center, if they're virtual, if they're physical, regardless of their location, as long as they're connected and protected by FortiGate or the Fortinet security fabric, they're going to be allowed to traverse to good sites and blocked from malicious sites. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please reach out to Fortinet or your Fortinet account team. We're happy to run this demo again for you and answer any questions that you have regarding today's malware demo. Thank you.